So Brianna, take me back to what would be maybe your most nerve-wracking race. When was the time that you've sat behind the blocks and felt like the world was watching you and you thought, I've really got to get this right here?
For me, I probably think that would be my 2016 Olympic trials. At that stage, sort of in my career, all I was known for was a 200 butterfly. So I knew I couldn't make it in any other event. My 200 butterfly was my only shot. And at that stage, we actually did heat semifinals and finals of every single race. So it was a bit of a bigger program back then. And I remember going into the final and I was like, everything comes down to this one race. Like, I don't really have a backup option to make it on the team. Like, if I, for some reason, if this race doesn't go to plan, like, that's it. I'm not going to my first Olympics. So I think that race I'd have to have found, I was probably entering it the most nervous I've sort of ever been. But in that being said, yes, I wanted to make the Olympic team and it would have, it was such an honor. But I think it's not until you've been to one or two Olympics that you could really carry the weight of trying to qualify for the Olympics. Because I found in, say, 2024 Olympic trials last year, like, that was also very nerve-wracking because I knew what an incredible experience the Olympics was and how I wanted to experience that again and represent Australia and wear the green and gold. So, but I felt like in 2016, although I only had that one option to qualify, I didn't really know what an honor or how special it would really be.
You don't know what you're missing out on if you don't
Yeah,
make it right.
exactly. And I mean, was fortunate enough to go to the World Champs the year before, but that just doesn't compare. And I mean, in terms of the caliber of athletes in the swimming pool itself is, World Championships is equal to the Olympics, but it's everything that comes with the Olympics that makes it that bit more special and just the most incredible experience in general.
Is there one of those three Olympics that you swam at? Do any of those stand out for different reasons?
I mean, they all stand out for such different reasons. Rio, sort of my first. I would describe myself as young and dumb. I went in there, I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, I was 20 at the time, and it wasn't that I was there to have fun, but I was racing freely, I guess. I had the 200 butterfly, that was it. I think it was midway through the program, and after that, I was done. And I didn't really understand how pinnacle and pivotal the Olympics were. That they can, they are the highest sporting competition in swimming. So but going to your first Olympics is always so special. And back then it was obviously pre-COVID. We got to stay for the next week. We got to go to the closing ceremony. So there are a lot of incredible things that I'm so glad I did get to experience. And then obviously Tokyo is so special because I guess we thought there was a possibility it wouldn't go ahead. So I think the fact that we got there, the Australian swim team got in and out, there was no COVID, we got to race. I feel like the Australian team, not even just swimming, we brought so much joy to the Australians back home. It had been such a rough year and a half or year of lockdowns in and out. So I think for the swim team and everyone else to be able to perform to the equal amount of gold medals was so incredible. And I felt like we brought a lot of joy and hope back home to the Australians, which is obviously, a really special and touching moment for us. And then Paris, stepping on the podium for the first time in Paris itself. Obviously, Paris is a beautiful city and I love Europe so much. So they're all so special for different reasons.
And in terms of like going from your first one to your second to your third, did you feel like you were able to carry that experience going through the next 8 years from qualifying for your first one? And was there a certain moment in your racing or in your training where you felt like, all right, I reckon I'm of that caliber and that level where I can actually make the Australian team? Like, is there a certain moment that stands out for you where you had that belief that, all right, I think I'm a really good shot here and I know that I can be with those other swimmers?
In all honesty, I have had a really pivotal moment, but it wasn't really self-belief. So in 2012, I got to go to my first Open Nationals, which is in Adelaide, and that coincided with the Olympic trials for the London Olympics. So I was 16 at the time. I made my first final in the 100 butterfly and the 200 as well. And I remember on the last night, I sat down, I watched the team get announced that were going to the London Olympics. And I said to myself, I was like, when they announce Rio in 4 years' time, I want to be one of the athletes that's announced. That for me, I'd always been passionate about swimming and wanted to take it to the highest level, I guess. But that was a really pivotal moment in my career that I really set my goal of making an Olympic team. And I think being 16, making finals was also like promising in itself. I mean, I got to race Jess Shipper and Steph Rice, and I just remember I was in awe of them. So that for me, I was like, wow, like in 4 years' time, like I would love for that to be me. So that was like a really, I guess, thought changing moment. And it's how, yeah, I remember like my coach at the time, I sort of sat down with him and I was like, I want to make the Rio Olympics in 2016. Like I want to be on that team. And so everything from then on was gunning towards making that team in the 200 butterfly. Yeah, but in terms of self-belief and believing I can be up there, I honestly have really lacked that throughout my career. Um, Obviously, like I'm a butterflyer. Emma is number one. I'm always going to be second to her. And that's kind of how I viewed my whole life. And I mean, she is the goat of swimming. So yeah, it was such an incredible honor to be able to race her every time and to watch her conduct herself on pool deck. I mean, she's such a humble, incredible athlete and just goes about her business. And, yeah, she's a very, very admirable girl. But I feel like I certainly lacked a lot of self-belief knowing that I'm always going to finish second to her in the 100 butterfly. So, but moving to Dean's squad, like I sort of mentioned when we were chatting before, he's a coach that believed in me so much and that helped me so much as a person, both in and out of the water. And I believe that sort of in the last, I guess in 2024, like I would say they were my best results that I've ever had. And I think it took that year and a half working with Dean, working with the support team around him, and even all of our teammates to really believe in myself and have like full faith in myself.
Can you talk a bit about the change in, like, so I guess, environment, culture of moving to Dean's squad 2 years prior to the Olympics? Because I can imagine it's like you're pretty much you're training with some of the absolute cream of the crop in terms of swimmers in the world. And we were talking about it before, like just Dean is so invested in getting the results for his athletes if they're willing to put in the same effort. So I can imagine like just being in that sort of environment every single day, probably twice a day, that would have a profound impact on the way that you maybe think about yourself or the way that you approach your swimming when you're surrounded by that level of athlete and so many of them.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a big change and the best change ever. I'm from WA and we were lucky if we got two on the team, maybe three. Most of the time we didn't have our coach. So I mean, I felt like such a lone wolf when I was on the team. Like I remember I was 16 and I made my first short course worlds. I didn't know a soul. We're going to Turkey and I didn't know a soul on the team. I didn't have a coach. I didn't know any coaches. I was 16. I was from Perth. No one knew me. I kind of just got on a whim because everyone was having a break after the London Olympics. And to look at how that was and compare that to the 2023 World Championships or 2024 Olympics, where I'm in Dean's program. He's got 10 athletes on the team. He's also got multiple support staff. I'm a senior athlete now. It just doesn't compare. And I tell you, like being on the team with your teammates is the best thing ever, rather than being a little lone wolf from WA who's you'd have to do your sets by yourself. You have like a coach that you work with. They might be from Victoria, they might be from Queensland, but I always felt like an inconvenience because they had their own kids to worry about on the team. They don't really want to be doing having to time me for my sets. But yeah, like you mentioned about Dean's squad, he is the most passionate, enthusiastic, caring, incredible coach that I've ever been fortunate to work with. And he will invest 110% in you, provided that you invest 110% back into swimming, into the squad, into, your relationship with Dean. And I think that is so pivotal. I mean, a lot of people ask me like, oh, like, is the relationship with the coach important or your teammates? 1000% it is. Like it's what makes or breaks an athlete. Like if you don't trust your coach or your gym coach or whoever it may be, then like what are you working with? So
Mm.
I know that I backed Dean, his training, his methods. 110%. And I know it's what got me to being able to swim PBs at the age of 28. So it was an incredible environment to be in, and to be swimming next to Arnie, and for her to be on world record pace in training, or Elijah on world record pace in training, like it inspired me so much. And I know that like I'm older than them, but like just watching them do what they do, it inspires everyone in the squad to be better.
Let's talk training sets. Is there a particular session that stands out to you as being the hardest session you've ever done, or a particular set that you just go, here we go, time to strap in?
I think this set is known by other people. Like obviously swimming's quite a secretive sport, but I think everyone knows that this session that we do, and it's on the Thailand training camp. And there's a lot, like Thailand training camp is the hardest training camp I've ever been on. It's 3 weeks. And there's this one session, and it's typically a Monday morning. And I know it doesn't sound that hard, but yeah, it's a 30-minute relay in either teams of 3, or if you're lucky, 4. I've always been lucky and had a team of 4. And it's just a continuous relay in a 25-minute pool. It's just dive in, max, and every single person is timed. Every single effort is timed. Every single coach is on pool deck. Every lane is timed. So you are held at the highest of standards. If you drop off 0.1, 0.2, you're yelled at. It's intense. So, and everything was obviously like a relay changeover. So you're getting out of the pool, getting on the blocks. So down one end, it's like the short rest end, and you might get 30 seconds, no, less than that, maybe 25 seconds. But when you touch a wall to get onto the blocks, and the other end, you might get 45 seconds rest until a max effort, 25. And like someone like Kai Taylor, he does the whole thing without a breath, like in the swimming part, obviously.
Jesus.
And that is incredible. And every single effort is timed. It's so high intensity. I think we ended up doing close to 40 25s max effort. Actually, no, maybe it was more than that. And I'm talking like they are max. And yeah, I mean, I usually would do like half butterfly, half freestyle. Yeah, that would have to be one of the hardest sessions. And I know it's only 30 minutes, but I remember looking back at my watch data, and my heart rate was above 190 for 28 of those 30 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that pool is hot too. Like from it's because
so hot.
Even the 50 is hot, but the 25 is probably 29 or 30 degrees. Yeah,
literally a bath. And obviously there's carry on pool deck, there's music playing. It's like workers at like the resort would walk past and just look at us like, what on earth is going on? And then one of my favorite moments, because you do it every Monday for 3 weeks, but one of my favorite moments is like when that final time is up and everyone's just flaked out on the pool deck, because like everyone has just given 110%. They are so cooked and so exhausted, but you know that everyone has worked so hard. So it's like this feeling of achievement, but also like you're exhausted, but everyone's in the same boat. Like it's quite an incredible feeling. But that would certainly have to be one of the toughest sessions. And I know it only lasts 30 minutes. I mean, we have to make up like 6K before and after, but yeah, it's tough. It's really tough.
That's such a good way to do it though. As a relay, you've got everyone else there working, you're in there as a team, and you're being held accountable with your getting times each 25.
Yeah. And I also felt like it helped my relay changeovers so much. Like I just felt so confident, because obviously you're getting on the blocks under so much fatigue, and to be able to perform, so you could be disqualified. They watched every changeover, and like there would always be extras for DQs or whatever there was. But I felt like it helped my changeovers so much.
That makes a lot of sense, right? That's unreal. And I think back to when I was swimming competitively, like it's those shared experiences with other people is how you really develop those strong bonds and friendships. And it's like that's what really I think gels people together. And that's like it feels like there's something out in the ether after you've done that with a group. Like you just feel like it's almost tangible that you can just like it's that shared pain that you've been through.
Yeah, it's quite an incredible sort of feeling, quite surreal almost.
At Effortless Swimming, our mission is simple: make swimming more enjoyable. Whether you're training for your next race, swimming for fitness, or just love being in the water, we're here to help you swim faster, smoother, and with more confidence. And one thing that can make or break a swim is your goggles. If you've ever struggled with foggy lenses mid-session, you know how frustrating it can be. That's why we created the Effortless Swimming Hydro Clear Anti-Fog Goggles for long-lasting, crystal clear vision. I've been using them myself, and the difference is night and day. And I'm not the only one. Deborah swam 36 kilometers down the Derwent River, and the entire time her vision stayed crystal clear. No fog, no frustration, just an uninterrupted swim. So what makes the Hydro Clear goggles different? It's all in the technology. Unlike ordinary anti-fog coatings that wear off over time, Hydro Clear super hydrophilic technology is built into the lens material itself. Here's how it works. Instead of fog forming as tiny droplets, water spreads evenly across the lens, creating a thin film that prevents fog from even starting. And the result? Consistently clear vision, swim after swim. And the durability? Our lenses are CNAS certified. Tests show that even after 2,000 rubs with a wet cloth under a 200 gram load, the lens stays fog-free. No gimmicks, just serious performance that lasts. Using them is simple. Just wet the lenses before putting them on and you're set for a fog-free swim. Ready to see the difference yourself? Get 15% off your first pair of Hydro Clear anti-fog goggles with the code PODCAST at shop.effortlessswimming.com. That's 15% off your first pair of goggles with the code PODCAST at shop.effortlessswimming.com. We also have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you're not happy with the goggles for any reason, you can simply return them for a refund. Don't let foggy goggles ruin another swim. Try Hydro Clear today and experience clear vision from start to finish. And so that Thailand training camp, how many Ks would you typically be doing through the week? Or how many sessions as well?
Nine swim, but we wouldn't really go under 6. And there's a one Wednesday that's at 9K. That's a fun one. Yeah, so between 6 and 9K and 9 swim sessions. But I mean, on top of that, we're running around the track. Like it's like 3 gym, 3 run, 3 or 4 bike, circuit, yoga, core, med balls. Yeah, it's big.
Stop.
But
Yeah.
it's incredible that like the facilities are out of this world. Like I love that everything's there. You don't have to get in a bus and go to training, wait for everyone to finish to come home. Like, you know, food is there. It's ready it's like buffet style food. And yeah, like it's a very like lock-in kind of training camp. You don't really leave maybe on a Saturday night we go down to the town where there's this incredible like supermarket and they cook steak and things like that. But apart from that, you don't really leave the resort.
Yeah.
But it's great. Dean says it's his favorite place in the world.
Yeah, I bet. Disneyland for Dean. That's awesome. It was 10 years ago actually that a friend of mine started working at Tanyapura and he said, bring a group over. And so we started running camps there 10 years ago and we've been there every year apart from I think 2 through COVID maybe. But it's just so good. Like you roll out of bed, walk across the bridge, you're at the pool. And then dinner is or breakfast is like right next door. Yeah, it makes it so easy.
Yeah, it's really incredible facilities and like I love my time there.
Yeah,
obviously it's very hard work, but yeah, it's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And what about getting out of your training environment, like your normal training environment? Do you feel like everyone's able to? They're in this different mindset when they're able to just step out of their daily life and head overseas and go on these training camps. Like, would you use it in the lead up to trials or Olympics? When was it placed throughout your year?
So it was always in January, February sort of period, depending on, because obviously Dean's very involved in the St. Peter's swimming, like the school swimming. So he always had to be back for their school carnival kind of big competition. So it would sort of either be January, February when I was in Dean's squad, but we also would always have a camp in May, and that was usually Cairns or somewhere a little bit warmer, just so when we do those I guess it's the very point end of the season where a lot of things are done on long rest or there's time trials or that kind of thing. So we'd always go to Cairns for 2 to 3 weeks right before the trials for Worlds or Olympics, whatever it may be. And I mean, that's very much to, one, get into a little bit warmer environment, and two, to eliminate all distractions. Like, you know, it's such a pivotal part. Like the last 3 weeks in the lead up to Olympic trials is like a very sort of stressful time, and it was almost nice to just get away, and all we're doing is focusing on swimming. No one's really at uni, no one's worrying about, you know, if there's stress in the family or anything like that. Like, it's a very important time, and the focus is 1000% on swimming and performing in training.
Do you have a certain way that you'd sort of go into trials and competition in terms of like, is it like no social media, or is it like making sure that you don't know, read at night? Like what's your sort of routine look like when you're in those really sort of pointy end of your season and important parts of it?
I'm like, I never shut down my social media. Like even at the Olympics, like I was still on it. I definitely don't like delve into comments and read articles. Like God, no, they're just keyboard warriors. But I feel like sometimes just like mindlessly scrolling TikTok, it's like a distraction. I remember at World Championships, literally this time last year, it was when the Super Bowl was on, and I just loved watching like the Chiefs at the after parties or whatever it may be. Like I'm a big Taylor Swift fan, so like Taylor, and I just like, because it's just like mind numbing. It just takes your mind off like racing at the pinnacle of the sport. So I would like definitely stay on my socials, but to look at other things apart from swimming. Just to, yeah. And I mean, like, I'm a pretty big reader as well. Like I've got my Kindle, and so if I do need to, like, I'm like, okay, no, it's too much Olympics is popping up on TikTok. Like I'll just switch to a Kindle and I'll just read. Or if I know that I'm quite wound up, like I've raced that evening, I've got to race the next morning, like I might not go on my phone. I'll just read, because that will just put me to sleep basically.
Yeah. It's hard to stay. I'm asleep within like 3 pages. If I've trained or something that day, it's very hard to stay awake at night. I've got a book that's taken me 3 months to get through. I'm halfway. So it's a slow process.
Yeah.
In terms of like visualization or mental rehearsal, I know that's been a big thing for you. What's your process there? Like sort of step by step, like when do you do it? What are you visualizing? Like at the start of a race, like how's that process look for you?
So in the last sort of 6 months before Olympic trials, I sort of worked with a performance coach. I'm probably not someone that like, I've never really seen a psychologist. I know a lot of people see like psychologists during training and racing, but that, I don't know, I just found it never really worked for me. Or like, I guess almost I didn't feel the need. So I found this lady, and she was so fantastic. Like she's actually an ex-athlete herself for New Zealand in a completely different sport, but she gets it, you know. And I just felt like I needed someone who understood how high pressure some of these situations are. And it was fantastic. Like I loved working with her, and I mean, she taught me so much. And I think the biggest thing is that I wanted to get up on the blocks at a competition, or say Olympic trials or Olympics, whatever it is, and say, I have done everything I can. So again, like working on that confidence situation is something that was very pivotal to me, is to get up onto the blocks, to not be phased by anything going on. If someone's done some crazy time in the heat, like they're not backing it up again at night. So I just tried to let nothing phase me, get in that very like calm mind state, focus on myself, and basically get up on the block saying, I have left no stone unturned. I could not, hand on heart, could not have done or given anything more. So I think like having that mindset for me was really important. Aside the 200 butterfly, and I just always said to myself, no, this is fun. This is just a fun race. This is just helping the 100 butterfly, because that was just a different race for me that I didn't enjoy doing.
Yeah, it's I don't think too many people have looked forward to a 200 fly before.
Lizzie loves it. Lizzie loves the 200 butterfly, and I have so much admiration for her that she just sticks to her own race plan and just trusts herself 1000%. Whereas I'm like, I get so caught up knowing that like I'm more of a front well. I mean, taking the 200 fly in Australia, like I'm more of a 100 swimmer than a 200 swimmer. So I should be out front of the 100. And if I'm not, I'm just all over the place. So yeah, for me, like the 200 fly was just I just went into every race sort of in the latest stages of my career. I went into every 200 fly being like, you know what, I'm just doing this to help my 100 butterfly, help my back up. So that was my mindset on that.
It's a way to do it.
Yeah.
And in terms of technique, like did you sort of have to develop or change your technique over the last sort of 8 years, or foundationally you were quite good? Like were there certain things that you'd been focusing on, and if so, how did you go about working on them?
Yeah. I feel like I've been so fortunate in my career that technically I'm a very good swimmer. I'm very efficient. Like I have hypermobile shoulders, elbows, and like my upper body's very hypermobile. So I was able to get into like crazy catch positions. And yeah, that's obviously like a massive advantage when it comes to swimming. So I felt like technically speaking, I've always been very, very good, but my skills have lacked. And I felt like I have tried the last, like when I sort of moved to Dean, I spent a lot of time on my skills. Like, and I certainly found that like in particular, my underwater, like got a phobia of holding my breath. So that's never going to work well. But I really learned to maximize my time underwater and actually just improve the power of my kick a lot. And then like, apart from that, like my turns and my starts and my finishes, like I guess just small things that were never really drilled into me. Like I would never ever breathe inside the flags. Well, I mean, in Dean squad, no one ever breathes inside the flags. Just small things that that they become subconscious over a period of time. But for me, I was like, oh, well, okay, like that's something I've got to think about and make sure I don't do. So technically speaking, I felt like I've always had a really good foundation, but my skills have certainly been something I have really paid a lot of attention to the detail in the last few years.
And how did you go about increasing the power of your kick?
A lot more kick and training. Like we Tuesday, Thursday morning at like a dedicated kick sets. Um, and like I guess like looking back, like I'm so proud of how far my kick came, and then in the gym as well. Um, yeah, but like we just did a lot of kick work, which I actually really enjoyed. I have always enjoyed doing kick, but that just helped me so much.
How are you doing it? Are you like kickboard and snorkel? Are you vertical kick? Like what kickboard and snorkels are?
Yeah, kickboard, snorkel all the time. I just think like for me, 90% of the time I'll do butterfly kick rather than freestyle. And I just found like obviously fly kick's quite like a rhythmic kick. It's very hard to have a head up, so I'd always wear a snorkel. And yeah, like kickboard, snorkel, and just fly kick most of the
Mm,
time.
gotcha. And what about on your back? Are you doing much on your back or mostly just on the front?
Always on my front. Yeah, I don't know. I guess like fly kick on your back is quite different, I would think, to fly kick on your front. Yeah, I did everything on my front because I guess like I was never ever going to be on my back in a race, so I'd always train on my front.
Mm. And in terms of what you've learnt as a professional swimmer, like some of those maybe character traits or skills you've had to develop, are there any that stand out to you that you feel like will keep you in really good stead in your future after swimming?
Yeah, I think there are so many transferable skills, and I mean it's not even just from swimming. I think like as a professional athlete, there are so many valuable skills that we embody and that can be brought to later on in life. And um I think for me, when you go into a workplace, there are so many skills that can be learned, like Excel, Microsoft, whatever it is. Whereas these skills that we have learnt, or not even learnt, but they're in our nature, like having time management, being disciplined, listening to others, listening to a coach, having good communication, just having such autonomy in our sport. Like, we're motivated. Like, they're just things that we as athletes embody, and that's just absolutely comes naturally to us. And I think like soft skills like that can't really be taught. Like, it's not like teaching someone how to write an essay. It's like they're things that are either within you or they're not. And I feel like they're skills that can certainly be used for future.
Mm. Yeah, it's like, and I think in terms of, as if I was going to hire someone, I'd much prefer to hire someone who maybe might lack in the technical skills side of thing, but in terms of their character, being on time, those skills that you develop well, I think in a high level of obviously any sport, but like if you've got to if you're dedicating yourself to the sport for that long, like you've got to be good at it. And I think that is, if you've got that as your core, then the other technical stuff can be learnt. And I mean, that's what we always had drilled into us. It's like when we were 11, 12, 13, our coach was, and my dad was my coach for most of my younger years. And he's just like, which of your friends are up at 4 a.m. in the morning getting up and doing something? And like, it just would always have that drilled into us. And I think, like, I look back now and I was like, okay, yeah, we've heard that. But then, like, looking back, it's like, well, yeah, absolutely. That was a really, really good skill that I'm glad that I developed and dedicated myself to as a teenager.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like, entering the workforce at whatever age people sort of enter, like post uni, like I feel like a lot of people go through uni just doing the bare minimum. Whereas in our sport, you have to go above and beyond to get to be on a team, to be number one, whatever it may be. So I feel like that's, going those extra miles, not talking like in the pool, but just in general, is really transferable and can translate for later in life. Like when, yeah, you're willing to literally go above and beyond to get something done or to help someone or whatever it may be.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were saying before the call, you're on long service leave from swimming at the moment. You just haven't been in the pool a whole lot post the games. What's that process been like for you, having spent, I don't know, what is it, 12 plus years where you haven't had more than a handful of weeks out of the water, to now just being in there only just a handful of times?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, like straight off the back of racing, I took a 5-week holiday in Europe, which was amazing. But I feel like since coming home, like I've obviously swimming is a very, very structured lifestyle routine. So I've had to find structure in other ways, which has been interesting. And I've like enjoyed that. I have just been creating a routine that sort of works for me. But I think like something I've really is the ability to say yes. I always said, like, after Paris, like, I just want to be a yes girl and say yes to opportunities that, I'd always be like, oh, I'm like, so sorry, I've got training. Like last Saturday, I was fortunate enough to be invited to such a cool New Balance event at one of the like really boutique, bougie sort of gyms in Melbourne. And like, it's a Saturday, I'd usually just be in the pool. Being able to say yes to things like that has been so exciting, and obviously just something I'd never been able to do, or to go to the Melbourne Cup on a random Tuesday. Usually it's like, oh no, sorry, I've got training in morning and night. I don't do anything during the day. So yeah, just being able to say yes to opportunities. And I mean, yeah, like tonight I'm going to Luke Combs, and like usually be like, oh no, like I've got training on a Saturday morning and that's the main set. Like I can't do anything Friday night. So yeah, just being able to say yes to different opportunities has been like really exciting. But I certainly am ready to like get some like swimming structure sort of back in.
Yeah, it's so funny. I forgot like just how difficult it is to do anything else when you are swimming full time. It's like, yeah, you've got time during the middle of the day, but like you're not going to be up until 11 o'clock at night out at an event, or like you just can't do that. So yeah, God, that must be a nice change. So,
Yeah.
and in terms of the change moving down to Melbourne, you'll stay there going forwards, like find a squad. What's the plan?
Yeah, I mean, like they're obviously the VIS, and I'm good friends with Sam Williamson, so he's based out at MSAC over there. So yeah, I guess like that's kind of the rough plan under like Craig at MSAC. But yeah, I'm just really just taking my time. I guess also just finding my feet in a new city is another big thing. Like never lived in Melbourne before, never even spent time in Melbourne because there's never any swimming events in Melbourne. So I mean, like we always go to Brizzy or Adelaide. So I'm like, I feel like I'm fairly used to those places. But yeah, Melbourne is completely different. So yeah, I've just sort of been, I guess, finding my feet here for the past few months. And yeah, we'll slowly start, making my way back into the water.
Yeah. Well, it's there's no real rush. It's like may as well just enjoy the time that you've actually got off. And in terms of like you've been doing a few keynotes and speaking engagements and things like that. Are there any particular core lessons that seem to come up in each of those talks that you're doing?
Actually gave a really big one on Wednesday. It was to 700 students and like 100 staff members. So that was probably my biggest one so far. And I I'm really trying to speak on resilience at the moment. I feel like this next generation is almost like sugarcoating everything. Like, oh, you didn't come first, but here's a participation. Like, no, everyone falls down. You got to get back up. And that's how you learn. Like, resilience is like a muscle. The more you train it, the more it grows. And I think there's maybe like a little bit of a lack of resilience in kids and young adults these days. It's like things just don't go to plan. Like I missed the Olympic team on the first night of my 100 butterfly when that was the plan. I had to get up 48 hours later and make the team. Like I was absolutely gutted. I spent 4 hours bawling my eyes out to my coach. But I knew that the next day, if I didn't wake up with a new attitude, I was actually going to miss the team. Like I was fortunate enough I had potential other options I could make it, but that wasn't like a given. Like my given was almost the 100 butterfly and that didn't happen. Um, yeah, I just feel like the one thing I'm really trying to chat on at the moment is resilience. Unless obviously there's a key theme that I need to discuss. Obviously, with like International Women's Day coming up, like obviously women in sport and empowering women, like I'm very big on that. But yeah, in terms of like a general theme, I really try to talk about resilience and picking yourself back up and not everything's smooth sailing. Life isn't linear. So yeah.
Mm. And quite often, and I think I've probably spoken about this on the podcast a bit, but like quite often those like real downs are the ones where you look back and go, that happened for a reason. And I'm really glad it did. But right now it's very hard to see it. It's like they are often the turning points in your life. And I find for me, if I'm working on a certain thing, say for effortless swimming, if I'm really frustrated that I feel like I'm not making progress with it, or I'm like, it's a new skill or something I've got to learn, I know this is actually the right thing to be working on because it's hard and it's difficult and I'm getting frustrated. So just keep with it and it will eventually come through. But to me, that's actually a sign, all right, I'm working on the right thing here because it's difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like you have whatever it is in life, it doesn't have to be school or sport, but like challenging yourself is so important. I mean, that's why after um after Paris, I knew I was taking like the rest of that year off swimming, and I was like, you know what? I feel like I love exercise, and I'm very much about like a healthy lifestyle and fitness and that sort of thing. But I was like, you know what? I need a little challenge, and so like I've never run more than 5K in my life, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to train for a half marathon, and yeah, I did it on Christmas Eve, and yeah, like I just needed something to work towards a goal, and God, it wasn't easy. I'm like world's worst runner. I can't keep my heart rate below. And I just think like that's so important is to challenge yourself in whatever way it is, like a personal challenge to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bree, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate you spending your time here. I know we've got quite a bit on, so yeah, thank you very much, and congratulations on all of your success over the last 8+ years.
Thank
And yeah, just I've sort of watched you from afar. I've seen you obviously training with Arnie, and I know Kia somewhat. So like just great to watch your progression and journey, and watching you compete in Paris was amazing. So congratulations, and looking forward to seeing what's to come.
thank you. And thanks so much for having me on the podcast.
My pleasure.